I think there's sort of something else other than humans.
I think you just make it up as you go.
Some certain things have happened in my life that some higher thing has had something to do with.
I think we're pretty much in control of our choices and destiny.
Yeah, it's up to me.
There's something up there that's planning my life.
Yes, I believe there is a plan for my life.
People of all ages have lingering questions that have occupied and troubled the greatest minds of each generation. What makes humans different? We know they're different. We know that we treat human life as unique. Most of the challenging philosophical conundrums are usually the exclusive domain of philosophers, but not these three questions. Both the philosophically adept and the philosophically untrained have a right to feel a vested interest in how these questions might be answered. Indeed, how we answer them has an immediate and potentially fatal bearing on how we view ourselves and those around us. And it is here we begin to question. Who are we? And why is it that we intuitively know certain things about ourselves? Why is it that we have certain traits and capacities that make us unique among all living things? Our appreciation of beauty, our capacity for abstract concepts such as numbers and symbols, our propensity for creating music, our inescapable drive to worship, our regard for the life of others with whom we have no filial relationship, all serve as immediate examples of the uniqueness of human beings. The question of who we are is asked in different ways, including what makes humans different from all other species of life? What on earth are we here for? What makes something morally right? We also, as human beings, as I mentioned, ask questions. We ponder things. We can actually ponder our own existence. Not only can you think a thought, you can think about the fact that you think thoughts. Now think that one through. Despite attempts to reduce the concept of humanness to being merely another animal species by those who reject that we are unique, it cannot be reasonably denied that human beings are not only biologically unique, but that we are also emotionally, socially, psychologically, and spiritually unique. When a peacock shows its colourful plumage to a peahen, it's not being artistic, it's being instinctive. But human beings beautify themselves, their surroundings, their environment, their possessions, their dwellings, and even their food. We uniquely value beauty. No other creature is capable of symbolic concepts, such as numerals or mathematical symbols, yet human beings traffic easily in symbols and are even capable of highly complex symbolic thought, such as algebraic equations or philosophical paradigms. When an animal sings its song, it's not being musical in the sense of composing, creating and performing as a human is when they sing the song that they have composed, created and performed. Music in this sense is a uniquely human art form. Perhaps the most distinguishing feature of what it means to be human is our drive to work. One of the most mysterious and uniquely human traits is our propensity for care and altruism. our inexplicable care, concern and compassion for those we have no obligation toward.
I think it's very small water. Oh, yeah, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Went for a bike ride down to the waterfront and
Strangers will dive
just
into
hanging out,
floodwaters
relaxing
to
on a
rescue a
bench.
distressed child at the risk of their own life.
it happened.
We give to
It all went
charities
down.
which work to alleviate the suffering of people that we've never and probably will never meet.
Was sort of
These are
started
just
to
some of
flail,
the
and that's when
traits
I jumped over the
that
rail,
distinguish
took
human
my
beings
clothes off,
from all other creatures.
and jumped in. That was it.
Some guy's drowning down here at Bear Attached.
I realized the only way I could get him to the shore was if it was, at least 2 minutes swimming to get to the shore.
Oh my gosh, this guy's passed out. We need somebody here right now.
One guy helped me pull him up, and I started chest compressions. I checked it sort of on instinct, and you just know what has to be done, sort of. Like, I just knew I had to get to that guy. I feel thankful that I could help him out, and I was in the right place to be
Other
assistance.
creatures don't seem to be concerned with matters of purpose and life's meaning. But humans are. In fact, without a sense of purpose and a belief that life is meaningful, despair usually results. When despair grips a person, they lose hope and often the will to continue living. Being human doesn't mean we might settle these questions of purpose and meaning subjectively. It's a matter of how we'll settle these issues objectively that provides any hope of adequately resolving this uniquely human question. Because as human beings, we have rules of conduct. And why is it that we have rules as human beings? We have people who make living out of enforcing rules, police and lawyers and so on. Human beings universally and intuitively acknowledge certain conduct and motives as either morally virtuous, good and right and moral, and other conduct as either morally depraved, bad, wrong or immoral. We often attribute these moral characteristics to animals or even the weather. But when a lion mauls a man to death or a hurricane destroys a family home full of people, neither are behaving immorally. In this instance, the lion is responding instinctively and weather is constrained by the laws of physics. But when a human mauls another innocent human to death, it is an evil, immoral act. We intuitively know this. There's something about the Universal Moral Code, or what University of Texas academic Professor Jay Budziszewski calls the natural law, which he says we can't not know. These things combine to form the mystery of who we really are.
Or maybe if they've taken a few college courses and have learned something about the history of political thought or ethical thought, they may think that it has something to do with the social
Is it
contract.
possible to answer this
All
first
too often,
question
natural law is
without
treated as a
invoking
rarefied
God?
study of academic
Well,
philosophy.
yes, and atheism does. The question is whether their answers are adequate. One of the highest profile promoters of atheism is Professor Richard Dawkins. He answers the question, who are we, with the answer that we are DNA machines. We are survival machines, robot vehicles blindly programmed to preserve selfish molecules known as genes. This is the truth which still fills me with astonishment. Well, it would fill me with astonishment too if I thought it was true. What he's saying is you are essentially a DNA factory. That's it. That's your sole purpose. You're a DNA factory. Now, you might notice this doesn't address some of those questions about who am I? Why are we unique? It doesn't deal with the question of purpose. Well, it kind of does, doesn't it? What on earth am I here for? Richard Dawkins says, you're here to pass on your genes. That's your sole purpose. Doesn't matter anything else you do, Your sole purpose is to pass on your genes. Well, what about that other question about who we are, right and wrong? Well, it doesn't address it, and it doesn't address it very deliberately, because in Richard Dawkins' worldview and in the worldview of atheists, there is no right and wrong. After all, you're just a bag of genes. You're just an accumulation of chemicals. You're meat from the top down. You don't have any law to keep because there is no law. There are no rules. The idea that human beings are simply DNA factories, no more, no less, is meant to answer the sub-question of our identity as well. What makes us different from other species? What is the meaning of life and purpose in it? What determines whether something is morally good and right? For Professor Dawkins, the answer is simply our evolution. We evolved this way, and these questions help us to survive. But the idea of evolution doesn't seem to adequately explain why we are fundamentally and constitutionally different from all other species. It doesn't adequately explain universal morality and what makes something virtuous, morally good and right, even though it may jeopardise our own survival, the central idea of Darwinian evolution, or our celebration of beauty, which has no bearing on our survival. And neither does it explain our deepest and universal longing to connect in worship with the Supreme Being. This leads us to the next immortal question of mankind. People may be inclined to acknowledge that God is the best explanation for answering the first question, but then they doubt this when they consider the prevalence of evil in the world. How could there be a good, all-powerful, loving God who allows there to be evil in the world? It is evil when someone we love is mowed down by a stupefied drunk driver. It is evil when a woman is raped. It is evil when people are robbed and then murdered. And it is particularly evil when it directly affects us. How can we naturalistically explain malicious evil perpetrated by one human being on another, especially when it has no advantage or bearing on their own survival? There is also the universal problem of the misery caused by suffering from what we often call natural evil. This is when natural elements, the weather, water bodies or geological structures, are the means of human suffering. Tornadoes, floods, fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, sinkholes and storms have inflicted their fatal worst on mankind down through the ages. Don't these things lend weight to the atheist's argument that life is just random and all human beings are merely the product of blind chance, not some special creation by a good, all-powerful and loving Supreme Being? In the meantime, it raises questions each one of us asks. When tragedy happens, how am I supposed to deal with it? Richard Dawkins and atheists might say, tragedy happens, that's it. Get on with it. It won't matter. You'll be dead and rotting in the ground, 6 feet down in a matter of days and months anyway. It's not really tragedy, it's just the way things are. We will all be affected by tragedy, and it is the common experience of all humans to grasp for hope and answers during such times. If we are merely DNA machines, then why does loss through tragedy impact us so terribly? There is something within each of us that strives to make sense of tragedy. And there's some horrible suffering that happens in the world. Just horrible. Kim and I were reflecting on someone who was the victim of what I would consider to be the worst kind of sexual abuse. And this went on for 16, 17 years from when this person, from about the age of 2 or 3. And you just think, why would in this instance, why would a father do that to his daughter? I don't get that. And yet it happens. And to think that that's not wrong because we're just a collection of genes and we're just living in a world where tragedy happens, get used to it, suck it up. That's all there is about it. There's nothing you can do about it. You're just chemicals. You just have an ability to think things through and really just thinking too much about it. That's a pretty bleak answer. And if the world is full of things that happen and we don't welcome them or invite them, then that is a reasonable question. What hope have I got for the future? How am I supposed to handle it when the doctor tells me I've got cancer? Or even worse, when the doctor says your child, your wife, your husband, your mother, your father has cancer. So we've just looked at the first of mankind's 3 unanswered questions. The question, who are we? What makes us humans? What makes us humans different from all other life forms? We've seen that atheism attempts to answer this question, but really doesn't answer it satisfactorily. And that's because it can't put all the pieces together that make us us with a satisfactory explanation, such as our quest to worship, this intuitive knowledge that we have that there is something beyond us, and that deep longing for us to connect in worship with our Creator is something that atheism cannot explain. Our altruism, our care for others, which sounds like a faint image of our Creator, the one who loves us limitlessly. These are things that point to the fact that we humans are unique. We're not just meat from the top down. We're not just a bag of cells. We are unique. We aren't just physical. We are immaterial. The fact that we can think about our thoughts says something, that there is an immaterial component to us as well. This is well worth pondering. Perhaps you've already started down this journey. Perhaps you're already considering some of these deeper questions, and perhaps you've come on this journey and you recognize that we humans are indeed unique. You are just one prayer away from connecting with the God who made you and beginning to discover His purpose for your life. God does have a reason for you. And that reason starts with coming to know Him. One prayer, even though you might feel like 1,000,000 miles away, you're only one step, and that's a prayer. That prayer is the first step in coming back to God, and you'll discover it's one step back. That prayer simply is something from your heart that cries out to God and asks Him to forgive you, to reconcile you, and to restore you into a relationship with Him. That prayer from your heart as you cry out to God can be the beginning of a whole new journey. And if you make that journey, we'd love to help you on the way as well. We have loads of free resources, Bible studies, audio podcasts, videos, and all sorts of things to help inform you of the God that you're now beginning a relationship with. Thanks for watching this. Be sure to watch the next part of this as we explore the second of mankind's 3 unanswered questions. I'm Andrew Corbett. Thanks for watching. Why? Why is there evil in the world? And hardly a week goes by when there's not some news report of some atrocity committed somewhere. So this question could be